Welcome to the Peer Perspective Podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Ascend Mental Wellness. It is based on lived experiences and personal perspectives. It is not intended to replace therapy or medical advice. I am your host, Ginger Miller.
And I'm her co host, Michelle Morehouse.
On today's show, Finding Balance and Rhythm This Summer, we're talking about how summer months can impact our mental wellness, daily routines, and recovery journey. While summer often seems as a season of fun, relaxation, and new experiences, it can also bring challenges and change and added pressures that affect individuals in different ways.
So, summer can bring a lot of change to our daily lives, from kids being out of school and shifting routines to changes in work schedules, increased social activities, financial pressures, and even the impact of the heat and weather. The summer months really do look different for everyone. So, today we're going to explore those changes can affect our mental health and wellness, substance use recovery, and the importance of finding balance and creating a rhythm that works for us. When we think about summer, there's often this idea that summer is supposed to be a season where we relax and enjoy ourselves. But that reality that is summer can look very different. So, why do we think summer sometimes can bring unexpected challenges for people, even though it is viewed as a positive and exciting time of year?
I think it's a little bit like the holiday time. We get hyped up and have certain ideas in our mind about, oh, so it's summer. We've got to plan the vacation. We've been cooped up all winter, so the hiking we wanted to do, or the picnics, or the this or the that we couldn't do. We've got to cram into our up, northern New York short summers. So we have this expectation and create an expectation similar to what we do around the holiday time, having that perfect holiday. Well, we want the perfect summer because we've been cooped up all winter and we know there's another winter coming. So I think it's a similar mentality. Um, and we create the challenge for ourselves.
You talk about the perfect summer. Why is there that pressure to make the most of every moment?
Some of it because of how short our summers are. We really, we've got spring, but there's a lot of rain. And then we've got autumn, but then it's starting to get cold again. So we really only got a short time period compared to the rest of the year where we can really go out and do those certain activities any time of day and not have to deal with the extreme cold or all the wet or and just enjoy things. I think that's one thing. I think another thing is the idea of we had that long winter, so now we want to do the fun things that we couldn't do before.
Do you think we, in our own way, we've perpetrated that there is the ideal summer?
Until we started talking about this, I hadn't really thought about that. But yeah, I think we do. I think it's probably a pretty common thing that we do. Everybody's looks a little different, people that are into camping, maybe it's, the expectation I'm going to camp at least every other weekend or whatever. Or other people, maybe it's, they're more the hikers. I've got to hit so many trails this summer. Or so it looks different for everybody. But I think we kind of do. We get certain things in our mind that I want to be able to get done this summer to almost like that in the back of our mind, thinking, prove that I had fun this summer.
We internally built that pressure on ourselves and just from like societal expectations too of what a summer looks like.
Yeah, I think so.
So, how can those expectations that we get impact someone's mental wellness?
Well, I think of my own situation, and so when I have a summer, I remember last summer, I had figured that I'm going to get over to the Herkimer Diamonds, and I'm going to go over and go hiking a couple times, and I'm going to do this, and I had these things in mind, but I didn't plan any of them. And the couple that I had started to plan, I broke my foot, so things come up that throw us off our plans too, or the weather comes in and maybe it's too hot to go or it's rainy and we didn't expect it. So I think the challenge of weather in itself makes it hard sometimes.
Why is it important to recognize that it is okay if your summer doesn't look like someone else's, or that perfect summer that is portrayed in media or in commercials?
Yeah, you got to get out on the boat and hang out on the pontoon, or you got to, yeah, media does love to play on those kind of things. I think that it's important to think about being in the moment. All these different things that we've talked about that can come up, whether it's the weather or unforeseen circumstances, or sometimes our own mental health or other challenges are likely to come up. That's just part of life. So being able to be in the moment and recognize whatever the situation is. If we had planned on being able to camp this weekend and it's raining, so we cancel the camping plans, don't let that put so much of a damper on that you can't decide to have a family game night. Maybe we have to think on our feet a little bit and change it up, but we can still have fun. And maybe it's just not what we were hoping or anticipating to have. I think that being in the moment can help us to navigate and find that balance when things are going goofy for us.
I think one of the biggest themes we're talking about today is finding that balance and creating a rhythm that works for you. Summer can bring those changes, to our normal routines, which impact how we feel day to day. So let's talk about how those changes in routine can affect our mental health and wellness. One of the biggest change that comes with summer is that shift that we find, whether we're getting up at 5 a.m. or we no longer have to get up at 5 a.m. and it shifts to 7 or 8 a.m. For some people, the kids are out of school, work schedules change, and vacations happen. The structure that helps keep our days moving changes. So, we often talk about how those routines play a very important role in our mental health and wellness journey and recovery journeys. So, why is having some type of structure or that rhythm still important during times of change?
Well, we talk a lot about some of the struggles that people in recovery, both addiction and mental health, and that structure, like you're saying. So just because we have a time period, kids are out of school or whatever, we have a time period that shifts that's different than most of the year. It's still the same reason that we have those routines for the winter and the other parts of the year. We still need it for the summer. We're getting a little more vitamin D maybe, but and that can be helpful. But it's not a cure all, and to just hop off of having routines can really throw us into a tailspin. Some people, some struggles that can happen. So when we know that summer's coming and the kids are getting out of school, our schedules are going to look different. We can kind of plan for it. We can have that summer schedule or that vacation schedule, and to make that schedule part of our planning for whatever change is coming along is important.
When someone doesn't take that approach and kind of start that summer routine a little early, see what it's looking like, what can happen when it disrupts their normal routine if they're not planning ahead for all of a sudden, oh, the kids are out of school. I have to go to work. I don't have a sitter. They need lunch now. School took care of lunch. How can that disrupt someone's routine, their mental health, affect their recovery?
The extra stress that's there, um, not not only the stress of the change itself, but the things like you're saying, that the other responsibilities and activities that fall within the day, the transportation to the sitters or their lunches or our own different work hours or things like that. Taking those things into consideration and planning for them is important to help us to keep, even if it's not the same routine that we've been doing, It's creating a new routine for that short time period.
So reiterating back to what you had said about, having that proactive plan, but what what's that fallout when it doesn't happen?
Oh, when it doesn't happen. Yeah, that can look like feeling like chaos, feeling rushed because we didn't have that plan, we don't have that routine, feeling like things are out of control. Maybe you had your most of your routine of in the mornings is, shower, make lunch, get the kids packed for school. You've got that thing going on. Come summertime, it's in if we don't have some sort of routine, maybe it's getting up a little later, maybe it's knowing which sitter they're going to, but we still have to have that. Without that routine, it feels like chaos inside. It creates anxiety.
And just to reiterate, to these situations, it's for people without kids as well, whether you're single or married or in a
Definitely.
relationship. It's your summer still can change because all of a sudden, again, like you had said, Ginger, you're getting more vitamin D. Daylight is, out till 8, 9 o'clock now, whereas you had your curtain shut, you had darkness, hey, that's bedtime. And that can impact. So you're also seeing changes in your sleep schedule with those daily responsibilities and social routines that are impacting someone emotionally. It could be maybe I'm working on 9 to 5 and my sister suddenly needs a sitter, how can I help out? So why are those changes impacting how someone feels emotionally?
Because if we haven't mentally prepared by having that routine, then it's contributing to that feeling of chaos that I talked about, contributing to that I don't have a plan.
Increased anxiety, that stress that you were talking about.
Yeah. So without knowing what's going on, that routine, then it's having to respond constantly on the fly. Oh, okay, what are we doing now? Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I forgot that, I'm supposed to get the kids over to their friend's house. Or, oh, yeah, I told so and so I'd help take them to the store.
And that undoes some of the work they've done in there.
Definitely. Because when we experience anxiety and stress, just because a situation gets better or changes so that we're not as stressed, it still takes our body some time to adjust and say, oh, okay, we're not stressed anymore. Especially when you've gone for, weeks or months at a time of high stress levels. It can take a little while to recuperate and let the body get used to being back on a normal pace again.
So, how can someone find a healthy balance between enjoying that flexibility of summer that they might be experiencing and still maintaining those habits and routines that are supporting their recovery?
I think the most important thing is a little bit of preparing. Yeah, summer, it's nice to have a little more flexibility, especially with the longer daylight hours and things like that. But it's still really important to have at least a skeleton of a routine. So taking the time to set before summer comes along and say, what things keep me balanced year round? If it's somebody in recovery from addiction, maybe it's certain meetings. Okay, I know that, during the winter, maybe I do 4 or 5 meetings a week. Summertime's a little busier, but I know those meetings keep me balanced. So maybe I'm only going to do 3 meetings a week, but they keep me balanced. So I need to have some. So figuring out what those pieces are, whether it's connection with family, the meetings, therapy, arts and crafts, summertime part of what a lot of people like is getting out in nature, being able to do that. So incorporate that. You can even take some of that me time that you need, that self care time, and incorporate that hike, incorporate that time that you need with an activity that you enjoy doing. Just acknowledge that's part of it. Our brains need to acknowledge that we're taking care of ourselves.
So, let's talk about consistency and routine. Why is maintaining it so important?
It's important for everyone. It's important for our mental health. Sometimes people hear the word routine and they start thinking strict schedules. But it's summertime. I don't want to have to follow a strict schedule. Routine doesn't have to be a strict schedule. Routines can simply be like I briefly referred to the skeleton. Just having those, we know that we're going to have lunch by noon. Between now and noon, we're accomplishing, if you've got kids, the beds get made, they get to daycare, whatever. Um, those without kids, maybe it's, I have to have certain chores done between now and noon. It can be a skeleton of a routine, but if we don't have that guideline, like a little roadmap to get us through our day, we end up just kind of floundering. A lot of people do. Floundering through the day, feeling like they've just wasted a day at the end of the day. And that doesn't help our mental health either. It makes us feel like, I wasted a whole day. What did I get done today? I didn't get anything done. So routine doesn't have to be a strict, tight schedule. It can just be something that gives us a guideline to follow through the day so that we can feel like we're getting some things accomplished and enjoying some of our summer too.
You mentioned self care. What are some small routines or daily habits that can help someone stay grounded during the summer months?
I think one of the big ones is the sleep schedule. It's so easy with the daylight. I can recall looking up at the clock just last week and thinking, oh my God, it's still daylight out and it's 9 o'clock. Normally by 9 o'clock, it's pitch dark in the middle of winter and we're kind of half wound down, ready for bed anyway. Some of us, but that daylight being longer messes with our circadian rhythm and our mind, thinking that it's only dinner time at 5, 9 o'clock. It feels like it's 5, and so anyway, keeping that sleep routine, even though it feels, we've got the longer daylight and everything. If we go to bed by 10 most of the year, then maybe summer we adjust it a little. We go to bed by 11. Keeping it a routine still, but keeping track of that sleep.
I like how you had brought up going to the meetings, like how in the winter you may have gone to 5. And if, depending on how busy your schedule gets, you might only get to 3 for the summer. I like how that infers staying connected to your supports and your support systems.
Absolutely. Yeah. We have to keep doing what works for us. Whether we're talking about somebody in recovery or life in general, whatever things work for us, we have to look for those key pieces and make sure they stay a part of that routine. It doesn't have to be exactly the same because of the longer daylight hours and adjusted schedules and so forth, but we need those important pieces, that staying connected. If that's meetings or family or whatever, the time, making that time for self-care. Sometimes the summers can feel like, it's all planning for the vacations and the picnics and don't forget the self-care in between there. Sometimes summer can be more stressful than winter, just in a different way. Another important thing is to recognize what you're feeling. Recognize when you're feeling overwhelmed. Giving yourself that minute to sit and acknowledge, I'm feeling this way. That's okay. Take a few deep breaths. And then, okay, what can I do to not be as overwhelmed? How can I help myself? Same as we would any other part of the year. Just don't forget to do it in the summer too.
Earlier, you talked about planning ahead for stressful situations. Another area that can really create stress during the summer months is that pressure to keep up, whether it's planning activities, taking the vacations, adding events, or feeling like you need to spend money to make the season feel meaningful or fulfilling. So let's talk about that connection between financial stress, expectations, and that self care, mental wellness that we're really going to be grappling with. So far, we've talked about how it does bring the change to the routine and how important it is to find that rhythm for those supports for our wellness. But those stressors we don't always talk about are going to be those financial and social expectations, whether it's in our environment or situations that may change, like you had said, recognizing when it's going to be overwhelming. So, what are some of those challenges we face?
The idea that summer's supposed to be carefree. Yes, we'd like to have some carefree moments in it, but just because it's a season doesn't mean that the whole season everything's supposed to be carefree. Life still goes on. We still have to, eat, pay the bills, kind of stuff. So the responsibilities that go with everyday life are still there. I think it's the approach that our brain takes.
Kind of going back to that idealistic summer, you have to have a carefree summer, or, kids come back to school in the fall and their friends are talking about all the vacations and activities they went on, and they're like, I didn't do any of that. We couldn't, the reality of accessibility, that affordability of certain things, like, it's not always possible.
No, it isn't. And I think that's where it's important to remember that there are a lot of things that can be done, aren't expensive. They may take a little bit more planning, but that's okay. The planning can make it more fun too, especially, if you're involving the kids, get them involved. There are places that you can go camping that are free. They're limited, so you got to plan for it, that kind of thing.
There are so many free activities in our communities.
Yeah.
There's parks that have the splash pads, or disc golf, or just going to Crandall Park or Hovey Pond and just relaxing and taking that scene in. Even going on any of the nature trails over at Crandall Park on the Charleswood, there's so many things.
And we have so many different events that go on in our parks that are free to walk around. You got to prepare yourself that, you're not going to go in thinking I can buy everything, but you can enjoy looking at the different crafts that are being made, or seeing the German Fest, or you can walk around and enjoy the environment without having to spend money.
Right, because yes, ideas to spend money, support people that are there doing this, but it's also about doing it for the experience.
And connecting, and yes, the experience of something new.
That experience itself, maybe are in recovery, substance use from alcohol, but you've always gone to a German fest. You know there's going to be beer there, but you're going for the experience. You're not going for the substance, because it's always something, it's the culture, it's the experience in itself is what is providing that. Not the money you spend to have a luxury cruise or an all inclusive. Those things are great, but what are you making of the experience?
When it comes to the cultural different activities, immersing yourself interesting you bring up, like, with the alcohol. If that's part of our history, it might be easy to think, well, that's what it's all about because of what we used to do. But remembering there's a whole other culture outside of the
Mhm.
alcohol, and the same for, the spending aspect. Going to an event that, yes, you could spend, and maybe that's what you have been able to do in the past or something, but you can go and just enjoy the culture of it too. It probably includes dancing or some sort of music or activities. Enjoy the beyond what you are used to expecting.
It makes me think of when you're making plans with friends for something that may think it involves money to spend. Someone may say no because they're like, I don't have the money to go. But you don't have to spend money. You can go just to hang out, just to be in the moment.
And that's where connection happens too. And connection doesn't have to be literally two people talking. Connection, feeling connected, sometimes can just be with the people that are around us. So taking a walk, just the walk itself, being around, hearing the we don't have to be in the middle of them to appreciate or see the interesting aspects of humanity.
When we're faced with those financial pressures, the vacations, activities to keep up, that gets overwhelming because it's like it almost feels like that one up. You got to one up your friends or that next family, but that is not the case. There are so many free activities, whether you're into arts or you're into sports or there's trade shows, there's activities throughout this.
Might take a little planning, but that's okay. You can make the planning fun too.
What we really didn't talk about is summer can be hot. Weather can be unexpected. Some summers we get the heat, dry, muggy, and not it can affect people, you know, not just mentally but physically too, and that physically not feeling great can impact their mental health and wellness. And like the changes, are we spending too much time indoors? Are we not spending enough time outdoors? And or is it going to be all rainy and we're stuck indoors? So that constant shift you were talking about, recognizing summer's coming up next month, you not to put your body in that fight or flight mode, but or that bubble of chaos, preparing, it's either going to rain or it's going to be extreme heat. I'll I'll do better keeping an eye on the weather. I'll have plan A, plan B. Whether for myself, whether you have a family, friends or in a relationship. So, how can that really impact a person's mood or energy and ability to cope?
Having that plan A, plan B sort of plan or structure helps us to flexible, which can help us to be more resilient. When we are more flexible, it's our brain saying, okay, I can run with this either way. I don't have to have the bright sunny day where the perfect hiking day. If it turns out to be a rainy day, my plan B is going to be a movie and popcorn with the kids in front of the TV or by myself reading a good book. Or if we have the two plans, we can look forward to both of them. Then we're not overly disappointed if we only had one plan. Not overly disappointed that one didn't hit. Okay, well, maybe I can plan that one next weekend. Today I can go read the book I was hoping to read.
And that's where utilizing your community resources are going to come in handy, whether you got your library card to create a library, your local library, go take out a book. Be you want to rent a movie and get a DVD to watch. Taking that, having that as that backup plan, or having that as your quiet time when the weather's not agreeing with you, or you don't want to agree with the weather because it might be hot, it might be rainy. You have those options. So, another big part of summer is obviously it's social event season. The weather's good. We mentioned vacations, and obviously, you got all the holidays. You got Memorial Day weekend that's passed, July 4th that we've just had. We got Labor Day coming up. We have birthdays, graduation season. So much going on that are often a big part of summer. But these situations can be challenging for people navigating substance use or addiction. What is a piece of advice you have?
Again, planning. If it's a situation that you know is going to be challenging for you, you want to go to the wedding because it's a family member, but most of your family doesn't have a problem with drinking. Okay, just like you would figure out around the holidays in the winter, am I going to make sure I've got my own transportation? Am I going to make sure I've got a sober buddy with me? Do the same kind of preparing you would for other events in the winter. Just now you're doing it for your summer events too.
And that includes year round.
And then another thing to keep in mind is, when we do, I know for myself, I've recognized that if I don't make the plan, I'll just sit and think, I'm waiting for the good weekend. Go to How Caverns. I'm waiting for that good weekend. I'm waiting for that. And I don't feel like it's too hot this week. And now, next thing I know, the whole summer's gone. I didn't go do. So for me, I need to, whatever that one special event is going to be, I need to go ahead and plan it. Buy the tickets, do the whatever, make sure it's planned.
Because you're locking yourself into it.
Yes. So one, I'm making sure that I'm going to, because now I've put my money down.
If you don't commit, you're committed yourself to it at that. you're spending $100 or whether it is a vacation or something you're going to do, you're investing that money into that activity.
Which also perspective can be a big piece of it. So now I've put my money down and I can get anxious about, oh, I hope the weather holds up, I hope it's not too hot, it's not too cold, it doesn't rain, instead of a lot of time fretting about that, having that A and B plan within that.
I think it's important too, as you're talking about those pressures, the stress and the triggers, that recognizing your own limits within that and reminding yourself it is okay to say no. You can say no. Even if you're just going for the experience and that pressure still seems too much, you can say no. And that's again your support system. If they're there, they will play that role of being there for you when you feel overwhelmed. In that, what are some healthy ways someone can manage that stress when they feel like those responsibilities, those expectations start to pile up?
Take a deep breath, acknowledge the feelings without judgment. Take a minute, and this takes practice, but it's really helpful, I think, for a lot of people anyway. I know it helps me and several that I know to be able to sit and just observe, what is my body telling me? Oh, okay, my jaw's tense, my heart's a little bit racing. Okay, so I'm having a little bit of anxiety over this situation. Don't judge myself. Well, you shouldn't be anxious about it. You knew it was coming. No judgment. Don't judge yourself about how you're feeling. Just acknowledge it. Acknowledge what it's doing to your body and let it go. Let that thought pass through. That changes our body's reaction and our mind so that we can adapt and manage it a little better. We can pull out those tools. If we just let the anxiety keep building and running, we don't think to pull out the tools. We just end up down a rabbit hole.
Summer brings all those challenges, changes, and unexpected things, but it can also really be the season for connection, growth, and support or wellness. So let's talk about finding balance and rhythm, what it looks like moving forward. When we talk about finding balance and rhythm, what does that look like in everyday life?
We can, it's impossible to be completely balanced and maintained balanced all the time. Just a fact of life on everything. We may get balanced with our social life and then our finances start slipping. And then we work on the finances and our spiritual life starts slipping. There's
You have to have chaos to have balance in some aspect. And that chaos is not always bad chaos, it could be good chaos.
correct. So, one, just knowing that there's no such a thing as perfection. You're not going to have everything all together perfectly all the time, whether it's summer or winter. And just looking at that and seeing that as a reality. As obvious as that is, it's still weird that we expect something that isn't possible.
And it's really going back to, like you said, don't expect it to be perfect. Life doesn't always go according to plan.
Rarely does. And being able to laugh at that is a good thing too. And roll with the punches. When the good times come, enjoy them, embrace them, be in the moment with them, appreciate them. And then, when something that we're planning or hoping for, expecting doesn't come through the way that we thought that it should or could or would, um, finding the good in that and rebalancing.
How can someone create a summer that supports their mental wellness, their recovery, without feeling the pressure to make it perfect?
I think it comes back to some of the same tools we talked about before, the self-awareness, the planning, the flexibility, having multiple plans, utilizing all these different tools for whatever, different situations. One tool work better for one situation and so forth. But keep using your tools through the summer. Just because it's supposed to be fun, leisure, whatever, doesn't mean that we don't use our tools. We still need those tools. They're tools to help us with, if we're in recovery, with our recovery. In general, just with our mental health in general, we need those things for a reason. So don't abandon them just because it's supposed to be a fun time. Even vacations need to have some structure and routines in them.
It gives them that additional support instead of trying to manage everything on your own. So, what is one thing you would encourage people to prioritize this summer when it comes to their wellness?
Being self-aware, because that's going to cover all of those things. So we being self-aware so that if we've had a few days that were extremely hot, and being aware of whether or not we were getting enough water and staying in the shade, things like that. Self-awareness plays into the weather part of things. Self-awareness plays into being aware of when we're starting to get anxious so that we can take a step back and get a hold of it before it runs down that rabbit hole on us. Self aware of when we need some self care, self aware of when we need connection. So I think self awareness is a really big piece so that we can observe what it is that we need and do it.
And if you're struggling, it's really important you have those friends, this family, that community to support yourself and anyone you may know who may be having a difficult time during the summer. So one of the biggest takeaways from today's conversation is that wellness looks different for everyone. Summer doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to keep up to do everything with everyone else. You will find your own rhythm. You'll find that balance among the chaos. Like you said, recognizing what you need, reaching out for support when you need it, and taking care of those parts of yourself.
And just because it's summer doesn't mean that you won't need a day that, it's okay to not be okay. Taking care of your mental health is important in every season. Giving yourself permission to slow down, recognize what you need, create a balance that works for you. You don't have to navigate challenges alone, and support's always available.
So thank you for joining us for this important discussion today. If today's episode resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and follow us on our socials for more conversations like this.
Thank you to our sponsors, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention of the Capital Region, MMB and Company, and Fidelis Care. Visit us on our website at www.ascendmw.org for all of the latest information, newsletters, resources, and podcasts.
And our podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and Spotify.